The black pit yawned in the center of the valley, where a massive beast lay, bound by steel and blood. Anyone who dared approach would invite death upon themselves. Earth, 2257. Humanity had begun to survey neighboring galaxies with unprecedented vigor. The Helios 7 mining operation sat on the semi-desert planet Aurelia Prime, where a team of miners had just discovered strange pictographs at the edge of a deep pit, a place where no large predators had ever been recorded before. Mara Ellington stood at the edge of the excavation site, her half-human, half-Agraxian heritage evident in the slight shimmer of her bronze skin and the unusual amber glow of her eyes as they adjusted to the harsh desert sunlight. At 28, she had already earned her reputation as one of the foremost predator biologists in the colonial expansion. The red dust of Aurelia Prime clung to her expedition boots as she peered down into the darkness below. "You're not seriously considering going down there, are you?" asked Cameron Reyes, the senior miner who had first discovered the markings. His weathered face creased with concern. "The seismic readings are off the charts. Whatever's down there, it's big." Mara adjusted her equipment harness. "That's precisely why I need to investigate. If there's an apex predator we haven't cataloged, the entire ecological assessment of this quadrant could be compromised." The truth was more personal than professional. Since childhood, Mara had carried a deep-seated belief that all creatures deserve to live, a philosophy that had earned her both praise and criticism throughout her career. Her Agraxian mother had instilled in her a reverence for life that transcended species boundaries, something her fully human colleagues often failed to understand. Aurelia Prime was a harsh mistress, a planet of red rock deserts with a punishing climate that reached 40 degrees C during the day and plummeted below freezing at night. This was the second month of the Helios 7 campaign, and they were in the midst of sandstorm season, not ideal conditions for exploration, let alone a rescue mission that nobody had authorized. "Base team wants visual confirmation before they send the heavy machinery," Cameron said, handing her a portable scanner. "But between you and me, they're hoping whatever's down there is dead already. Less paperwork that way." Mara's communication unit crackled. "Ellington, this is Colonel Jarek. Get your readings and get out. Sandstorm's building from the eastern ridge. ETA 90 minutes. "Copy that, Colonel," she replied, already securing her descent equipment. Just a quick scan. As she rappelled down into the darkness, the temperature dropped dramatically. Her helmet lights illuminated strange formations in the rock. Not natural, but not obviously artificial either. The pictographs grew more numerous, primitive drawings that depicted what appeared to be a four-winged creature with a metallic exoskeleton. Then she heard it, a low, rattling growl that seemed to vibrate through the very stone around her. Mara froze, hanging suspended in the darkness. Her headlamp beam swept across the bottom of the pit and caught a gleam of something reflective, something that shouldn't be there. "Holy stars," she whispered. Trapped beneath a massive hydraulic cage door, a creature unlike anything in the Aurelia Prime database lay pinned to the ground. It was enormous, at least 3.5 meters tall when standing, with a body covered in what appeared to be natural biological armor. 4 wing-like appendages, now crushed beneath the steel trap, extended from its back. Blood-red eyes, fixed on Mara with primal intelligence, and a viscous fluid leaked from multiple wounds across its body. It was a carcuminate, an apex predator with biological armor plating and 4 retractable wings. The creature's eyes blazed red in the darkness, tracking her every movement as she descended further. It had been trapped for hours, maybe days, the metal spikes of the cage penetrating its armor in several places. Her comm unit crackled again. "Ellington, report! What are you seeing down there?" She swallowed hard before responding. "Colonel, I've found a carcuminate, adult specimen, severely wounded but alive." The silence that followed spoke volumes. Finally, "Get out of there, Ellington. That's a direct order. We're sending in the elimination team." "Elimination?" Mara's heart raced. "But sir, this is a discovery of immense biological significance. We need to study it, not kill it. That's an apex predator, Ellington. It's wiped out 3 mining teams and a squadron of autonomous infantry on the southern continent. If it's trapped, we consider that a stroke of luck and finish the job. Return to base immediately." Mara glanced at the suffering creature. Despite its fearsome reputation, all she could see was a being in pain, trapped and terrified. The decision formed in her mind before she could fully rationalize it. "Colonel, I'm going to attempt to release it from the trap." "Absolutely not!" Jarek's voice thundered through the comm. "That's suicide, and it violates every protocol we have." "It's suffering," she replied simply, already examining the trap mechanism. "If there's a chance to save it, I have to try." She muted her comm unit, ignoring the barrage of commands and threats that followed. The Carcuminate watched her, its breathing labored but steady. Up close, Mara could see the intricate patterns in its armor plating, like living metal, shifting slightly with each breath. From her equipment pack, she retrieved a nano-laser cutting tool and a vial of sedative designed for large xenofauna. The challenge would be administering enough sedative to calm the creature without killing it, or leaving it too vulnerable in the harsh environment. "Easy now," she murmured, though she knew the creature couldn't understand her words. Her Agraxian heritage gave her a heightened empathic sense, not true telepathy, but an ability to project and receive emotional states. She focused on projecting calm, non-threatening intentions as she approached. The Carcuminate growled, a sound that reverberated through the pit like distant thunder. But it didn't struggle as she carefully approached its flank, where one of the trap's metal spikes had penetrated deepest. The day was turning to dusk outside, and Mara could hear the first whispers of the approaching sandstorm. Air pressure was dropping, causing the steel cage to shift dangerously. She had to work quickly. She calibrated the nanolaser to the precise frequency needed to cut through the reinforced steel without generating excessive heat. Then, with a steady hand, she began to inject small doses of the sedative into the creature's biological vascular system, just enough to dull its pain receptors without compromising its vital functions. "This might sting," she whispered, activating the laser. The creature's eyes followed her movements, occasionally glancing around as if assessing escape routes. At one point, it pressed half its body against the pit wall, as if preparing to surge upward. Mara held her breath, adjusting the voltage of the cables and recalibrating the laser with each millimeter of progress. After what felt like hours but was likely only 40 minutes, the final metal panel fell away to the sandy floor. The Carcuminate shuddered, its eyes narrowing as it processed its newfound freedom. Mara stepped back, her hand hovering near her energy weapon. Not that it would do much against a creature of this size and resilience. But instead of attacking, the Carcuminate slowly backed toward the edge of the pit. It used its massive claws to clean its wounds, a behavior Mara had never observed in any documentation of apex predators. "I'm going to call you Craxus," she said softly, the name coming to her spontaneously. "It means survivor in the old Agraxian dialect." After several minutes of stillness, Craxus stood to its full height, statuesque and magnificent. It regarded Mara with a gaze that seemed almost grateful. The notion was absurd, of course. Apex predators didn't experience gratitude. Yet, there was something in those blood-red eyes that defied conventional understanding. From a savage, untamable predator, Craxus had transformed into a curious being that didn't attack anyone nearby. It maintained a watchful stance, but its aggression seemed to have dissipated entirely. When Mara finally reactivated her comm unit, chaos erupted from the other end. A security team had already been dispatched, and they arrived at the pit's edge just as she was preparing to ascend. "Step away from that thing, Ellington!" shouted one of the security officers, training his weapon on Craxus. "Lower your weapon," Mara commanded, positioning herself between the gun and the creature. "It's not aggressive. It could have killed me a dozen times already if it wanted to." Some of the miners had gathered as well, their faces masks of horror. "She's unleashed hell on us all," one muttered, reaching for his sidearm. Mara drew her own energy weapon, not to attack, but to make her position clear. "Nobody fires. This creature is under my protection now." Colonel Jarrett pushed through the crowd, his face a storm of barely contained fury. "Ellington, you've violated direct orders and endangered this entire operation." "With all due respect, sir, I've just made the most significant xenobiological discovery on Aurelia Prime," she countered. "Craxus isn't attacking. It's formed some kind of bond." Jarek's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. The Carcuminate remained unnaturally calm, standing protectively near Mara. After a tense moment, he lowered his weapon slightly. "Get that thing to the biolab for monitoring," he ordered, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "And pray to whatever gods you believe in that it stays docile. If it so much as twitches wrong, I'm authorizing lethal force, and you'll be on the first transport back to Earth to face court-martial." The journey to the biolab facility was tense. Mara led the way, with Craxus following at a respectful distance. Two security officers flanked them, weapons ready but not raised. They navigated through thick sand corridors, avoiding the worst of the approaching sandstorm. The station was built half submerged in the valley, protected by force field membranes against the harsh elements. Craxus remained vigilant, twitching at every sound of sand filtering from outside. Its luminous eyes peered through the protective layers, scanning for threats. Inside the laboratory, Mara administered additional sedatives to check Craxus's blood pressure and attach sensors for DNA analysis. During this process, Craxus suddenly spread its four wings in a threatening display, lunging toward the force field barrier, but stopping precisely at its edge. It took Mara a moment to realize what had happened. One of the lab technicians had approached her from behind with a high-powered restraint. Craxus wasn't threatening her. It was protecting her. This pattern continued throughout the examination. Whenever Mara bent down to clean its wounds, Craxus would gently nudge her, positioning itself between her and anyone else who approached. "It's not just drug resistance," Mara explained to Dr. Lana Voss, the head of the biolab. "It's forming an emotional alliance. It recognizes me as its rescuer." Dr. Voss looked skeptical. "Or it's biding its time until it can kill us all. Don't romanticize apex predators, Mara. They're hardwired to hunt and kill." The doubt gnawed at Mara as well. Was she projecting her own hopes onto a merciless killing machine? Was her compassion blinding her to the reality of what Craxus truly was? "If it becomes fully alert, you'll have to push the termination button," Dr. Voss reminded her, gesturing to the emergency protocols displayed on the lab's central monitor. "The regulations are clear. First-tier apex predators cannot be released alive." Mara nodded, though the thought filled her with dread. She found herself caught between scientific protocol and her deepest beliefs, determined to find a way to transform Craxus into a true ally rather than merely a dangerous captive. As night fell over the research station, Mara remained in the observation room, adjacent to Craxus's containment area. The creature had settled into a resting position, but maintained awareness of its surroundings. Occasionally, it would look directly at Mara through the transparent barrier, its gaze unreadable yet somehow profound. She was reviewing the preliminary DNA analysis when the first explosion rocked the facility. The alarm system blared to life, emergency lights bathing the corridors in pulsing red. Mara rushed to the security console just as Colonel Jarrett's voice came through the emergency channel. "We're under attack. Bloodfang raiders! They've breached the eastern perimeter! Bloodfang, a notorious gang of exotic animal traffickers known for their ruthless efficiency. They must have intercepted communications about Craxus, recognizing the value of an extinct predatory beast, extremely rare if captured alive. The sounds of plasma arrows piercing armor echoed through the corridors, followed by screams and the thunderous collapse of the main shield generator. Chaos erupted throughout the facility. Security personnel scrambled to defensive positions, while non-combat staff sought shelter in designated safe rooms. Mara found herself trapped in the biolab with Craxus, the automatic lockdown sealing the reinforced doors. Through the observation window, she could see plasma fire just meters away as security forces attempted to hold the line against the invaders. "They're after Craxus," she realized, her mind racing through possible scenarios. None of them ended well. Either Bloodfang would capture the creature for their black market operations, or security would be forced to terminate it to prevent capture. Unless... Mara glanced at Craxus, who had risen to full alert, its armored body tense with anticipation. The creature seemed to sense the danger, its eyes fixed on the sealed doorway, where the sounds of battle grew louder. Colonel Jarrett's voice crackled through her personal comm. "Ellington, they've broken through the first barricade. We can't hold them back from the biolab much longer." "Let me release Craxus," she said, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. "Have you lost your mind? That thing will kill everyone, us included." "It won't harm me," Mara insisted. "And right now, it's the only advantage we have against a dozen heavily armed raiders." A tremendous crash against the lab doors punctuated her point. The reinforced barrier wouldn't hold much longer. "Your call, Ellington," Jarrett finally responded, his voice grim. "But if that thing turns on us, I'll make sure they write catastrophic judgment error on your tombstone." The biolab doors buckled under another assault. Through the distorted metal, Mara could hear the raiders' leader shouting orders. "Break it down! The beast is worth 10 million credits alive!" Decision time. Could she trust that Craxus would recognize friend from foe? That the bond they'd formed was strong enough to override its predatory instincts? She approached the containment field controls, her finger hovering over the release sequence. Craxus watched her intently, as if understanding exactly what was happening. "Please," she whispered, "see me as your ally." She activated the release. The containment field dissipated with a faint electrical hum. Craxus remained still for 3 heartbeats, its gaze locked with Mara's. Then, as the laboratory doors finally gave way and the first of the Bloodfang raiders burst through, the creature unleashed a roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the facility. What followed was pure, calculated carnage. Craxus launched itself forward, wings fully extended, moving with a speed that belied its massive size. Each swipe of its claws tore through body armor and flesh alike. The Bloodfang raiders, for all their weaponry and experience, found themselves facing something beyond their comprehension, an apex predator in its element, driven by a singular purpose. Mara raised her hand in a signal. "Stop!" But Craxus continued its rampage, sweeping through the corridor and eliminating each raider in its path. Several of the intruders smashed their protective helmets in terror, cowering in dark corners and begging, "Please, we didn't know." But Craxus showed no mercy. Its eyes blazed crimson as it cornered the Bloodfang leader at the end of the escape route and tore him apart with methodical precision. After 17 minutes of chaos, the facility resembled a battlefield. Dozens of bodies lay strewn across the concrete floors, surrounded by fragments of armor and spent fuel cells. Communication with Central Command had been severed, and the pressure augmentation system was damaged. The sandstorm was approaching rapidly, and temporary headquarters reported evacuation in 2 hours. Mara knelt beside the lifeless body of the Bloodfang leader, her mind struggling to process what had just occurred. Around her, Only the soft hissing of sand against the facility's outer walls broke the silence. She turned to find Craxus standing nearby, its massive form now caked with drying blood. "Thank you," she whispered. "But was I terribly wrong to let this happen?" Craxus approached, gently touching its claw to Mara's forehead in what seemed like a gesture of comfort. The silence amid the devastation was testament to a terrible truth. Mara had just created a bloody legend. The automated announcement system crackled to life from one of the few remaining speakers. "Helios 7 Station, please report emergency status. We are dispatching a response team. Be advised that protocol violations have been recorded." Mara needed to make a decision quickly: attempt to weather the aftermath with Craxus at her side, or retreat to avoid imprisonment. She had little time to contemplate her options. Within hours, a negotiation team arrived. Representatives from the excavation corporation that operated Helios 7 ordered Mara to return to Earth aboard a military vessel. They insisted that Craxus must undergo verification before transport. But the creature growled menacingly, refusing to leave Mara's side. "It won't harm anyone unless they threaten me," Mara explained, placing a calming hand on Craxus's armored flank. "Please, let it accompany me." The corporation immediately convened an emergency meeting. There were regulations concerning sessile apex predators that could classify the creature as either an invaluable asset or an imminent threat that must be eliminated. After heated debate, they reached a compromise. Craxus would be transported to Earth alongside Mara, but under heavy sedation and multiple containment protocols. Mara would be held responsible for any further incidents. Upon reaching Earth, the Interplanetary Science Council summoned Mara for a formal hearing. The proceedings took place in a solemn chamber designed to intimidate. High ceilings, ancient wooden panels contrasting with cutting-edge holographic displays, and a semicircle of stern-faced officials seated on an elevated platform. Craxus, meanwhile, was kept in a specialized containment facility, monitored around the clock by both human and AI systems. Despite heavy sedation, the creature remained partially alert, its biological systems adapting with remarkable speed to the drugs designed to keep it docile. "Oh, Specialist Ellington," began the council chairperson, a severe woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. "You stand before this body accused of multiple protocol violations, endangering a corporate mining operation, and the deaths of 17 individuals, albeit hostile raiders." Mara stood tall, her voice steady, as she recounted the events that led to her rescue of Craxus. She presented the data she'd gathered, demonstrating that the creature had shown unprecedented restraint toward innocence while exhibiting what she termed owner protection skills, never before documented in apex predators. The carcaminate species was believed extinct for over a century, she explained, displaying holographic renderings of Craxus's unique biological structures. This specimen represents not only a scientific treasure, but potentially a new understanding of interspecies bonding. The debate lasted for days. Scientific experts argued over the implications of Mara's findings. Security specialists warned of the dangers of keeping such a lethal creature alive. Corporate representatives calculated the potential profit versus liability of a trained apex predator. Throughout it all, Mara maintained her position. Craxus had formed a bond with her that transcended instinct, and that bond could be the key to groundbreaking research in xenobiology. Finally, after much deliberation, the council reached its verdict. Craxus would be classified as special-grade research asset under strict supervision. Mara was noted as having both committed error by violating the shoot-to-kill protocol and as a pioneering explorer of new biological frontiers. The social sentence was complex. Mara received an official reprimand but avoided imprisonment. Instead, she was assigned to the Luminous Research Facility in the M81 system, where she would be responsible for observing and training her bio-knight, Craxus. News of Craxus spread throughout the galaxy. The giant predator ready to kill on behalf of its rescuer created a sensation, from the fascination with pet apex predators to concerns about human wild spirit events. As Mara stood on the observation deck of the transport vessel that would take them to their new assignment, Craxus by her side, she gazed out at the infinite universe before them. The creature's massive form cast a long shadow across the polished floor, a physical manifestation of the moral ambiguity that now defined their existence. Were they merely a bloody legend, as some media outlets had labeled them? Or were they pioneering a new era of interspecies relationships that could reshape humanity's understanding of consciousness itself? The answer, Mara suspected, lay in the journey ahead, a journey that would test not only their unique bond, but the very definitions of intelligence, loyalty, and coexistence. The transport ship hummed to life beneath them, its engines preparing for the long journey to the M81 system. Craxus rumbled softly, a sound that Mara had come to recognize as contentment rather than aggression. "We're going to change everything," she whispered, placing her hand on the creature's armored flank. "Together." Craxus gazed at her, with those intelligent red eyes, and for a moment, Mara could have sworn she saw understanding there, a shared purpose that transcended the biological barriers between them. As the stars streaked past the viewport, marking the beginning of their journey, Mara felt a strange peace settle over her. Whatever lay ahead, whatever challenges they would face, she and Craxus would face them as something unprecedented in galactic history. An apex predator and a human, bound not by chains or control, but by a mutual choice to protect one another. In the vast emptiness of space, they had found in each other something neither had expected, not merely a protector or a savior, but a companion who understood the fundamental truth that even the most dangerous creatures could choose something beyond their nature when shown compassion instead of fear. The Luminous Research Facility was nestled within the outer rings of a gas giant in the M81 system, its sleek architecture designed to blend scientific functionality with the natural beauty of its surroundings. Upon arrival, Mara and Craxus were greeted with a mixture of awe and apprehension from the facility's staff. "We've prepared specialized quarters for both of you," explained Director Elio Kwan, a distinguished xenobiologist who had advocated for Mara during her trial. "The containment area has been modified to accommodate Craxus's size and biological needs while maintaining necessary security protocols." Mara noticed the subtle emphasis on security protocols, but chose not to comment. After the events on Aurelia Prime, she couldn't blame them for being cautious. "Craxus doesn't need containment," she said instead. "At least, not the kind you're thinking of. She paused, realizing she had begun to think of Craxus as he, rather than it, in her mind. "He responds better to open environments where he can see me." Director Kwan raised an eyebrow but nodded. "We can adjust accordingly. Your research proposal mentioned behavioral conditioning and communication experiments." "Yes," Mara confirmed. "I believe Craxus possesses cognitive abilities far beyond what we've attributed to apex predators. The bond we formed isn't just emotional. There's a genuine understanding there." Over the following weeks, Mara established a routine that balanced rigorous scientific observation with the more intuitive aspects of her relationship with Craxus. Each morning began with physical examinations and basic cognitive tests, followed by increasingly complex communication exercises. Craxus proved to be a quick learner. He soon understood dozens of verbal commands and hand signals, responding with a precision that astounded even the most skeptical researchers. More impressive was his ability to make independent decisions based on contextual cues, anticipating Mara's needs before she expressed them. "It's like he's reading my mind," she remarked to Dr. Voss, who had transferred to the Luminous facility to continue her work with them. "Not telepathy," Dr. Voss corrected, reviewing the neural activity data from their latest session. But he's exceptionally attuned to your biochemical signals, heart rate, pupil dilation, micro-expressions. Your Agraxian heritage likely enhances this connection. Whatever the scientific explanation, the bond between them continued to deepen. Craxus became not just a research subject, but Mara's constant companion, accompanying her throughout the facility, except when experiments specifically required separation. The research community took notice. Papers published about their work drew both acclaim and criticism. Some hailed it as a breakthrough in interspecies communication. Others condemned it as dangerous anthropomorphism that overlooked the creature's fundamental nature as a killer. "They don't understand," Mara told Craxus one evening as they sat in the facility's arboretum, one of the few places large enough to accommodate him comfortably. "They see only what you were designed to be, not what you've chosen to become." Craxus rumbled softly in response, a sound she had come to interpret as agreement. He extended one massive wing partially, creating a shadow that sheltered her from the artificial sunlight, a protective gesture he had developed spontaneously. 6 months into their work at the luminous facility, an unexpected visitor arrived, Colonel Jarek Morand. "Colonel," Mara greeted him cautiously. "I wasn't aware you were scheduled to visit." Jarek's weathered face remained impassive as his eyes tracked to Craxus, who had immediately positioned himself behind Mara in a subtly defensive stance. "I'm here on behalf of the Military Science Division," he explained. "Your work has attracted attention in certain circles." "What kind of attention?" Mara asked, already suspecting the answer. "The kind that sees strategic applications," Jarek replied bluntly. "A bonded apex predator with intelligence and loyalty. There are those who believe this could revolutionize frontier security." Mara felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. "Craxus isn't a weapon, Colonel." "No," Jarek raised an eyebrow. "That's not what the Bloodfang Raiders would say, if any were left alive to say it." The implications hung in the air between them. Craxus sensed the tension, his armored plates shifting slightly as he moved closer to Mara. "I've been authorized to offer you a new position," Jarek continued, "leading a specialized program to identify and bond with additional apex predators. The compensation would be substantial." "You want to create more pairs like us," Mara said. Not a question, but a realization. An army of bonded predators and handlers. "Think of the applications," Jarek urged. "Colony protection, high-risk exploration, counterterrorism. With your methods, we could transform the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy into our greatest assets." Mara looked at Craxus, remembering the bloody efficiency with which he had eliminated the Bloodfang Raiders. Was that truly a path she wanted to help create for others? "I need time to consider this," she said finally. Jarek nodded, seemingly satisfied that he had planted the seed. "Take all the time you need, but remember, if you don't lead this program, someone else will. Someone who might not share your ethical considerations." After Jarek's departure, Mara retreated to her laboratory, mind racing with conflicting thoughts. Craxus followed, unusually subdued, as if sensing her inner turmoil. "What do you think?" she asked him, not expecting an answer, but finding comfort in voicing her concerns aloud. "Could we help establish guidelines, ensure humane treatment, or would we just be opening Pandora's box?" Craxus tilted his massive head, red eyes fixed on her with that unnerving intelligence. He moved to a nearby console and deliberately pressed his claw against one of the buttons, the one Mara used to access her personal logs. Curious. She activated the system. The screen displayed her earliest recordings from Aurelia Prime, including footage of Craxus trapped in the pit, suffering and vulnerable. "You remember," she whispered, understanding his crude but effective communication. "You're reminding me how we started." That night, Mara couldn't sleep. She paced her quarters, weighing the impossible choices before her. Joining Jarek's program might give her influence over how it developed, potentially preventing the worst abuses. Refusing might simply delay the inevitable, while removing her voice from the process entirely. By morning, she had reached a decision, one that would once again place her at odds with authority, but aligned with her deepest principles. She found Director Kwan in his office, reviewing the latest research data. "Director, I need to discuss something urgent with you." Kwan listened attentively as Mara outlined her concerns about the Military Science Division's interest in their work. His expression grew increasingly troubled. "You understand that refusing Colonel Jarek's offer could have consequences," he said when she finished. "The funding for this facility comes with political strings attached." "I understand," Mara acknowledged. "But I believe there's another path forward, one that serves science rather than military applications." She presented her alternative, a comprehensive study on the unique circumstances that led to her bond with Craxus, focusing on the ethical implications and the mutual choice involved, rather than attempting to replicate their relationship for tactical purposes. They would establish a framework for understanding when such bonds might naturally occur and how to nurture them responsibly. "This isn't about creating weapons," she explained. "It's about expanding our understanding of consciousness and communication across species boundaries." Director Kwan considered her proposal thoughtfully. "It's more aligned with our scientific mission," he agreed. "But convincing the Oversight Committee won't be easy, especially with the Military Science Division lobbying for their approach." "Then we'll need compelling evidence," Mara said. "And I think I know how to get it." The next phase of her research focused on documenting Craxus's capacity for moral reasoning, not just obedience or protection, but genuine ethical choice. Through carefully designed scenarios, she demonstrated that Craxus could distinguish between various types of threats, showing restraint when faced with confusion or mistake rather than defaulting to aggression. Most significantly, she developed a modified neural interface that allowed for rudimentary two-way communication. While far from perfect, it provided glimpses into Craxus's cognitive processes that challenged fundamental assumptions about predator psychology. 3 weeks later, Mara presented their findings to a joint session of the Scientific Council and Military Oversight Committee. Colonel Jarek sat among the military representatives, his expression unreadable. "What we're witnessing is not merely conditioned behavior," Mara explained, displaying neural activity patterns on the main screen. "Craxus is making conscious choices based on complex ethical considerations that evolved from our initial bond but have developed into an independent moral framework." She played footage of their most recent experiments, where Craxus had been presented with scenarios requiring judgment calls between competing values. In each case, the creature had demonstrated reasoning that went beyond simple stimulus response patterns. "The implications are profound," she continued, "not just for our understanding of apex predators, but for our definition of personhood itself. If a creature like Craxus can develop this level of moral agency, we must reconsider the ethical boundaries we've established between humans and non-human entities." The presentation sparked heated debate among the committee members. Some dismissed her findings as wishful thinking or dangerous anthropomorphism. Others recognized the potentially paradigm-shifting nature of her work. Colonel Jarek remained silent throughout most of the discussion, but when it came time for the military contingent to respond, he surprised everyone with his statement. "Having witnessed the Ellington-Craxus bond firsthand on Aurelia Prime, I cannot discount Specialist Ellington's observations," he said carefully. "While the strategic applications remain compelling, I believe further research is warranted before we attempt to replicate this phenomenon." It was a measured response, neither full support nor outright rejection, but it provided the opening Mara needed. The committee ultimately approved continued funding for her ethical framework research, while placing a temporary moratorium on any attempts to create bonded predator-human pairs for military purposes. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but preserved the integrity of her work with Craxus. As they left the committee chamber, Jarek pulled Mara aside. "Don't think this is over, Ellington. I bought you time because I respect your work. But the military isn't going to abandon this concept." "I know," she acknowledged. "But now we have the chance to establish ethical guidelines before things go too far." Jarek studied her for a moment, then glanced at Craxus, waiting patiently nearby. "You really believe he's more than just a killing machine, don't you?" "I know he is," Mara replied. "And deep down, so do you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have supported my research continuation." A hint of a smile touched the colonel's weathered face. "Perhaps, or perhaps I simply recognize the value of understanding something fully before attempting to weaponize it." Back at the Luminous facility, life settled into a new rhythm. Mara's team expanded to include ethicists, communication specialists, and researchers from diverse biological disciplines. Their work attracted attention throughout the scientific community, and soon, researchers were traveling from across human space to observe the unprecedented relationship between woman and predator. Craxus continued to surprise them all. His capacity for learning seemed limitless, and as the neural interface technology improved, his ability to communicate grew more sophisticated. He developed preferences, opinions, even a sense of humor that manifested in playful interactions with Mara and, eventually, other trusted researchers. 1 year after their arrival at the Luminous facility, Mara received an unexpected transmission from the colony on Aurelia Prime. The indigenous Centauri people, who had remained largely separate from the mining operations, had created a series of elaborate cave paintings depicting what they called the Sandwater Beast and its guardian. The images unmistakably represented Craxus and Mara, rendered in the distinctive artistic style of Centauri spiritual iconography. "They've incorporated you into their mythology," explained the colonial anthropologist who had sent the images. "According to their oral tradition, the Carcuminate was a sacred being, trapped by evil forces. You're now revered as a liberator figure who restored cosmic balance." Mara found herself unexpectedly moved by this development. What had begun as an impulsive act of compassion had rippled outward, affecting lives and cultures in ways she could never have anticipated. That evening, she shared the images with Craxus through their neural interface. His response came not in words. The interface wasn't yet sophisticated enough for complex language, but in a surge of emotions and impressions. Recognition, satisfaction, a sense of rightness that transcended verbal expression. "We've come a long way from that pit, haven't we?" she said softly, resting her hand on his armored flank. Craxus rumbled in agreement, extending one wing to create the protective shadow he knew she found comforting. Outside their research facility, the galaxy continued its complex dance of politics, commerce, and conflict. The debate over predator-human bonding persisted in academic and military circles. Corporations sought to patent aspects of the neural interface technology. Religious groups argued over the spiritual implications of non-human moral agency. But within the quiet space they had created together, Mara and Craxus had found something that defied easy categorization. Not just a partnership or a scientific breakthrough, but a new kind of relationship that challenged the very boundaries between species. As news of their work spread throughout human space, they became more than just a scientific curiosity. They became a symbol. To some, they represented the potential for harmony between humanity and the natural world. To others, a dangerous blurring of essential boundaries. They were heroes, aberrations, pioneers, warnings, all depending on who was telling the story. Through it all, their bond remained unshaken. Whatever the galaxy might make of them, whatever legends might grow around their names, they had found in each other something neither had expected when fate brought them together in that dusty pit on Aurelia Prime. Not merely protector and protected, but companions on a journey into uncharted territory. A predator who chose compassion over instinct, and a human who dared to believe in the capacity for change in even the most fearsome creatures. Together, they stood at the threshold of a new understanding, not a bloody legend, but a testament to the unexpected paths that open when courage and compassion lead the way. As the luminous facility's artificial night cycle began, casting the research center in soft, ambient lighting, Mara completed her daily log entry. Day 372 of the Ellington-Craxus symbiotic study. Today, we took another step toward understanding not just what separates us as species, but what connects us as sentient beings. The journey continues. Craxus, curled in his customized resting area nearby, opened one crimson eye and rumbled softly, a sound that Mara had come to recognize as contentment. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together. The human who had found a predator trapped in a pit, and the creature that now killed without hesitation for the one who had freed it. Not out of obligation or conditioning, but out of a choice freely made. A choice that had transformed them both into something new in the universe. Pioneers of a bond that transcended the ancient boundaries between predator and prey, reshaping the very definition of what it meant to be allies in a dangerous galaxy.